Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Creatively See Healing. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about why you keep attracting the same people. And so, if you feel like you keep attracting the same type of people, this might be why. So, my first point is we are drawn to what feels familiar, right? So, what can feel familiar is basically things that you grew up around, culture you grew up around. Like we know there's all sorts of different cultures, different temperaments, different behaviors that you grew up around. Rather you had an avoidant or, you know, insecure type of environment you grew up around, things like that. All those things impact you and create a sense of normacy around your life. And healing is kind of starting to address some of those things and giving yourself permission to see them as not being normal, and starting to embrace the fact that once you've embraced that it's not normal, you removing the shame, then it allows you to start then choosing to break the pattern and move into something different. So we're kind of going to go through that, but the first point is what feels familiar, right? So one example I can give, right, is one of the patterns that I started to see in the relationships that I was in was that I noticed, I think early on before I started my healing journey, I noticed that when I was in a relationship with someone and they got mad, rather it was friendship, boyfriend, or anybody, or even family, it's like when they got mad, they would say really nasty things. And there would never be a conversation around it afterwards. We would just kind of just get over it, because for me, and it might be okay for the other person, but for me, I processed it as, well, this is just who they are. And I had to just suck it up, because I feel like, it was something I grew up in my family seeing. So a boyfriend or a friend doing it, there was no, again, I was very disassociative. So sometimes when things hurt me repeatedly, I just learned I already had a wall up anyways. So when you do it, it just didn't impact me, which wasn't necessarily good. But as I healed, I learned one of the most important things is recognizing this pain point and using it to create a boundary, right? So I used it to create a boundary that was like, all right, so it's important for me that if I have a relationship with you, I need to experience you upset at some point. And then once I do, it's important for me to see how you handle conflict when you're upset. Do you dishonor? Do you disrespect? Do you call me out my name? And then once I see that side of them, that they're so unstable in their emotions, and even shutting down is a form of abuse too. So that's not like, because if you're not using that silence to then go jog or talk to a friend to then gain some sort of perspective to come back with, it's not healthy. So shutting down and ignoring the person, that's also abusive too. So one thing I learned is to observe all those things and to give myself permission to speak up about it. And if speaking up about it, they're like, all right, next time I'll make it work. I'm not going to do that again. And then next time comes around and they're doing the same behavior, then at that point, then I'm kind of like a 2 chances type of girl, and I'm done. So I make a decision that I'm done. And I learned as I healed that it's important to you don't necessarily have to cut the person off, but you can create enough distance where you can feel safe. Because for me, I learned to make it about, where do I feel safe in communication with this person? Knowing that if they do get upset at certain things, they might just kind of disrespect me and never apologize. So, but yeah. So that's, again, it's all catered to yourself. You have to make it about what works best for you. Second point is unhealed wounds attract similar energy, right? If you haven't healed from rejection, then you might attract people who reject you, right? So one example I had a friend that him and I started off doing we were very close. We talked about everything, emotions, all of that, but we We weren't in a relationship. We just had this friendship that kind of had a foundation of therapy and um, debriefing with each other about what happened in the therapy course. So needless to say, it grew a really deep bond. But at some point in the relationship, it started to turn and feel unsafe. I think I mentioned this last video. And one of the things that I started to experience was he grew a friendship with another girl who was kind of like a therapist or something like that. Really nice girl, but she just wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't dislike her. I just felt like some people feel like just because you're a therapist, you can do therapy on anybody. And for me, I just felt like she hadn't been through anything. So she can't do therapy on me because I've been through too much, and I always got to explain all those traumas, and that's not something I would be open to having therapy from. So he became close with her. She started to do therapy with him, and I don't know, their relationship got weird, but I wasn't trying to understand it. But one thing I didn't like is he would start to say things to me like, why can't you be more like her type of thing. And would just kind of constantly compare me to her. And I said, listen, if we're going to continue this friendship, you're going to have to cut that out with comparing me to her. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, you keep comparing me to someone who hasn't been through a fraction of the trauma that I've been through. I've been through some trauma. So I can be a little rough around the edges, but I'm a growing person. And I do like to acknowledge some of the things that I do wrong that I want to work on. But I'm not going to confess that I can show up on point every single time. That's not me. That's not who I've ever been. And perhaps maybe I can be that without putting pressure of perfection on me. But ultimately, I think it's important to make sure that my pace of growth is my pace of growth, and I'm not allowing some dude to make me feel like I have to, be like this girl. And I was like, yeah, that's not okay. Can you stop mentioning her in our conversations, please? And for me, I experienced him doing that as rejection. He might have thought he was doing something nice and suggesting something, or it could have been a manipulative tactic. I don't know. I stopped trying to understand what was going on in his mind. Because one thing I know is when somebody is attempting to be manipulative, they're never going to admit to you that, yeah, I was being manipulative, until they're fully healed and delivered from it. But if they're still doing it, they're not going to admit it to you. They might not say that they're not doing it, which is a form of honesty for them, but they're not going to admit it. So I learned to just not even bring it up. But one thing I did understand is that I wasn't comfortable talking to someone who was trying to make me feel like I was broken and that my past somehow made me some sort of damaged goods or something. And whatever his motive was, it didn't matter to me because I just wasn't receiving that in a relationship anymore. So that was kind of something that I was challenged with, and I did get through. But my third point is going to be it's not punishment, it's a pattern. So for me, what I did in that last example is that I started to see that, this is a pattern that I've seen before, right? Or the pattern of what I seen earlier with people getting mad and then blowing up and saying a whole bunch of things and then never apologizing. That's a pattern I've seen in my past, but it is something that deeply hurts me. So I've learned that when I see that pattern, I can break the pattern because I can finally see it. It takes you having to see it. You have to see a truth in order to take the first step of embracing it. Then once you start to embrace that uncomfortable truth, it becomes easier to change the pattern and redirect yourself. And that is when you get the gift that comes with that, being able to see it around you all of a sudden. And that's the gift that healing gives you. But I encourage you, awareness is the first step. Once you see it, you can choose differently. And you receive a gift from being able to see it the next time around, which is better for you because then you get to react differently the next time around. So to conclude, you're not stuck. You're learning, and God is guiding you to better. Like and subscribe. Follow for healing.